understand that being a strong leader, it's not a power thing. It's not that I want to be the top, so I'm known to being the top. A really good leader, a lot of times people won't know you outside of that ecosystem. And that's a good thing, because that means that you're empowering your team and you're making them the heroes of it. And you're facilitating and you're confident in what you're good at, and that you don't have to find your meaning and value in being known for these things. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second season. I guess it could be the first season of the rebrand. And for those of you who didn't get my last episode, I rebranded because I just want this to be an opportunity for you all listening to eavesdrop into my conversation. So today I get to have a great conversation with Mario. Mario, glad to have you here. Why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah. My name is Mario. I am originally from Los Angeles, California. I currently reside in Hawaii, and it's crazy. This year marks 15 years, which is just kind of mind-boggling to me. So almost a third of my life here. Yeah, it's crazy. Um, Being here in Hawaii. This is where I met my wife, and my family's here, and all my family's here. We have a strange kind of migration story. Um, I I practice branding. I do branding, and I'm trained as a graphic designer. But what I think I am really gifted at, just like with no kind of ego there, just I've found that I'm really gifted at helping people kind of like untangle the things in their head, and then give them a little bit different perspective, and kind of helping them see the scarlet thread through what their thoughts are. That's really what I feel like is my what I'm best at. And so through that, I do a lot of mentoring for men, and I've taught and led ministries for many years, and young adults, youth groups, things like that. So I think that's where I kind of started honing that skill. We're just kind of helping people think through their thoughts, connect with God, connect with themselves, really understanding their path forward and helping them get there. It's really kind of what I love to do. But I also kind of make designs and brand things, and
Love that.
that's fun too.
I literally wrote 4 questions down, and I'm laughing as I say literally, because I was on a mastermind call with someone else, and he's like, I don't like when people say literally, because you don't have to say that. I wrote 4 questions down, and and I want to know a little bit more about why you moved to Hawaii from LA. But I want
Okay.
to start with, you mentioned, like, not that you're being boastful
Yeah.
in that, and I really appreciate that, because I think, especially I think Christians too, we think that we can't
Mm,
be confident or
yeah.
share, hey, I'm really good at this thing. But understanding, hey, I didn't, like, if it's a gift, I didn't create that myself.
Yeah.
God gave it to me and trusted to me. So why wouldn't I be that? Like, I'm good at this, but I didn't find a secret way to be good at it. I've just been trusted with this.
Yeah. I like that word, being trusted with, right? Um, and that, I think there is a weird phenomenon. I think there's this idea of humility that has gotten skewed in the negative, in a sense, for Christians. We'll just talk on that sense, because I think we're humility is always, almost forced down our throats, and in a sense that you're never supposed to be proud of what you are able to do well, and you're never supposed to talk about it, which is really strange to me, because it's not and I get the boasting thing, but
Right.
it's really about, like, when I say I'm good at something, it's that I've been entrusted with a gift that God's given me, and I'm trying to the best of my ability, harness that and hone that to not to boast in, but to help others uh, in their seasons of life, right? Because I think there's something that is on. um, as a Christian, I really believe in the Spirit of God is He's put His Spirit in me, and in through that He's given me power to help people through certain situations. Matt, you're really good at certain pieces of that. I'm really good at certain pieces of that. We have mutual friends that are really great at certain other pieces of that. And if I never tell anybody that I'm good at doing that, then I can't actually fulfill what God's gifted me to do with that. And it kind of brings me back to that whole like story in the parable of the talents, where this landlord gives he's going away on a long journey, and he gives three different servants three different sums of money, and he's like, hey, here, I'm going to gift this to you. I want to see what you do with it. And one guy, the first two guys, they double the money, right? And the third guy is so afraid of what his boss might do when he comes home that he just hides it so that he doesn't waste it and or he doesn't lose it, and he just gives it right back to him. And um, the boss is like, you're just wicked and lazy. You didn't even try. You didn't even do anything with it. I gave you something to do something with it. And I really feel like that is the talents that we have. We're given these talents to do something with. And if I don't tell anybody about this talent that I have, how can I help anybody do? How can I fulfill what this talent's for if I don't actually
Right.
tell anybody about it? Right. But yeah, it's also weird that I have to, that I feel an impetus to preface, not to, like, I actually have to say, it's like, I'm not boasting about this. I'm just like really good at this, like like, it's almost like I'm almost doing it as well. I'm doing as well. Even while I say it, it's like, well, I have to preface this. Like, I'm not saying that I'm better than anything or anyone else. It's like, hey, I'm kind of good at this. Let me show you, like, let me help you,
Right. Right.
and, but I really do feel that kind of say, okay, you got to be humble in this sense, like, which is really
Right.
weird, but
It is. It's hard to get, because I preface a lot of things too, and I say I'm not bragging, but instead of, I could just say, I believe God has entrusted me with this. I'm really good at this, but that also gives me the humility and confidence to say I'm not good at this part, and I don't.
yeah,
And if I pretended to be because I would want to inflate my own ego or to have power or influence, and let's say I got a job because I said I was really, I lied on my resume. I say I was really good at something because I had my ego behind me, and I just want to be known for this thing. Well, if I'm not gifted at that, I'm going to crash and burn so quickly because
immediately.
immediately, right? And you, because there's common grace. Like, even if someone isn't filled with the Spirit, you still have gifts. Like, everything good comes from God.
Yeah.
Everything good comes from God. So you think of a corporate setting, whether it's in the marketplace or in a church. In the church, you have these spiritual gifts, things that people have been trusted with. And if you aren't confident in them and you don't know that and you don't pursue that, then you're actually being selfish because you could be
Yeah.
contributing and helping this corporate entity. And then you think of outside the church, right? I have a lot of ideas. I like creating things. I like being a visionary. I like taking philosophies and making them applicable and understandable for people. That's my sweet spot. But if you told me, Matt, you need to take this project and take it to the finish line and check all the boxes, please don't. That's not my gift. That's my wife. She is the most tenacious, gung ho, get it done
Yeah,
type of people. And if I was prideful and said, I want to be known for that because everyone sees her and celebrates her in that. If I want to be known for that, it's going to be at my own dismay, right? I'm going to be
absolutely.
very sorry that I did that.
Yeah, it's like, to use a sports analogy, right? It's like, it's like, we'll just use an actual example. Michael Jordan, right? He's like,
Right.
he was, best basketball player in the world. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna take a little time off. I'm gonna play baseball. He's like,
Right.
not the best use of his talents. He may have
Right.
played baseball at one point really good, but he's honed the other gift so much that he's actually not very good at this other thing anymore. So he can't really be known for that thing. Um, Whereas we can take another example as like, I'm not, I don't know why I'm doing this. You're a hockey player. Maybe that's why I'm not a huge sports guy, but like Bo Jackson was an amazing football player and an amazing professional baseball player at the same time, because he was
Yeah.
just a phenomenal athlete, and God had gifted him in such a way that he was able to do that. I think if we spend time to kind of like take stock of our gifts and really take hold of them and take ownership. I think ownership is a huge thing for me. Take ownership of what both what you don't do well, right? And what you do well. Like, I'm going to push into all the things that I can do really well, and I'm going to be really familiar with the things that I don't do well. Like,
Right.
I know I don't do that well. Like, I know I'm a vision guy too, right? My wife is the same way. She will cross the T's and dot the I's, and she'll like kind of move things forward. And I'm like, hey, we got to go there, get all the stuff together. Like, this is what we have to do. And then
Right.
after that, like, I don't want to do all the stuff. I just want I want to set the course. I want to say, hey, this is what we have to do. Now let's get some teams together so that we can actually move forward, that are really gifted in these areas, so that we can move the whole thing forward. Um, I think we have to be, going back to that humility thing, I think we have to be humble enough to know what we're not good at, in
Mhm.
order to tap into the strengths of the others around us, to bring them alongside and say, hey, you're phenomenal at that. You're phenomenal at that. Um, if we group together, we can move these things into a place of extreme amazing, fruition. But if you're too prideful, like you were saying, and I want to be known for that, and I want to be known for that, well, then you're going to be known for nothing, because you're actually not doing anything. You're just kind of like
Right.
trying a bunch of things that don't work, because you're not operating in your gifting.
And that's a sacrifice of your actual gifting
Yeah,
that you were entrusted to do. You are supposed to steward,
for sure.
and no one can do that but you. Like, other people will have similar giftings, but you were given that for a time and place. And like you said, there's a lot of humility in a team setting, in a corporate setting. There's a lot of power in a lot of movement happens when you can get everyone on the team to
Mm,
understand that. When you can
yeah,
say, hey, and that takes a confident leader to say, I see this in you. Let's put you in that position. It's not just about elevating someone to a different position in a business because they spent a certain amount of hours. How do you know they actually are going to be good at that if you don't
right.
take time to be curious and see, hey, you're actually good at these things. Let's promote you here and let's
Yeah,
celebrate that. And let's talk together and see, what aren't you good at? And the reason is, I'm not just trying to say this to make you feel bad. I want you to know, so that when you get stuck, you know everyone else on the team where they're gifted, and you can say, I need help.
yeah.
And that fixes everything. I think all this comes together, whether it's a individual or the corporate setting, pursuing things for the right reason.
Mm,
If I am pursuing money, career, something because I want that end byproduct, I want the money, I'm going to maybe I'm going to sacrifice actually what I'm good at to shortcut to get there quicker, because I saw that, hey, I could be someone who checks the boxes and I get
mm,
paid way more if I do this job.
yeah,
And because I can't see the road to how I'm going to make money doing this thing that I'm gifted at. But you actually sacrificed it, and you're gonna burn out. Inevitably, you're gonna burn out, and you're gonna not a not good things are gonna happen from that. So be patient, figure out what you're good at, and pursue that purpose in every single thing you do,
yeah.
and utilize those gifts.
I just got this picture and I know people don't really drive standard cars anymore. I don't know how it is in Canada, but people really don't drive standard cars anymore. They don't have to, like, you know shift gears
No,
and use a clutch, and they don't even know what those things are. But it's like, when you're you can't be in second gear everywhere. Second gear has its place, right? As does fourth, fifth, and sixth gear, right? So if you're trying to do something in a gear that it's not meant to do that, you're going to wear that gear out. You're going to burn out your engine because you're not. It's not meant. It can do it to a point, but that point will come really quickly. That point of failure will come really quickly because you're not operating in the fullness of what you're supposed to be doing. You don't,
Yep.
for those who don't know, like, you don't just shift your car into sixth gear right after starting it and try to go up a hill. You'll die. It will just shut off. But if you go from first to second gear, you'll climb that hill no problem, right? But on the other side, if you try to go down the hill in second gear, you're not going to go faster than 30 miles an hour, right? And
Right.
even if you push it, you're going to push it and your engine's going to blow up because it's operating in the wrong gear. That's what people in a corporate setting and a team setting, if you have the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're just spelling disaster for your team. But if everybody
Yeah.
knows what everybody else is good at and everybody knows how to lean on each other, and I think that's going back to the humility thing, is like, I need to have the humility to know that, hey, Matt, you're really good at this. I'm not that good at this. Can you walk me through this? Or can I hand this off to you? This will be this. Now it's your turn, right? It's your turn for this project to move this to where you need to move it. Right. And then after you're done, then you hand it to this person because they're going to take it over the finish line. Right.
Mhm.
Whatever it is. And so,
That's just go continue.
no, that's it. That's what I have
That's
to
it.
say.
And
That's it.
I wrote down, so I think we've talked about the six working genius before. Have we? Are you familiar?
Maybe I'm
Maybe.
familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Patrick Lencioni, basically there's an acronym widget. You have wonder and invention, discernment, galvanization, and tenacity, or enablement and tenacity. And these are geniuses that they've pinpointed that in the marketplace or the corporate setting, business setting, people will have. So
Yeah.
wonder and invention, that's the ideation phase. So I am my geniuses are wonder and invention. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm saying that's what God's given me, right?
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
I'm confident in that. So wonder and invention, hey, wanderers, you think, where's the potential in this? How could this be better? That's a wanderer.
Yeah.
You start to think of the idea. Inventors, you come alongside the person who's wondering and say, well, okay, if you want this to be better, let's invent something. Let's problem solve. Let's create a solution for this.
Yeah.
So that first phase of those two geniuses, that's ideation. Then the next phase is activation. In the activation phase, you have discerners and you have galvanizers. Discerners are those people who ask the really good questions. So if you're familiar in being in a group setting, there's that one person that always asks, well, what do you think will happen if this happens? Or what about this? What about this? And it
Yeah.
could be annoying if you don't understand that's a gifting of theirs. That's really important. They should poke holes in things. They should see
Yeah.
how this could go wrong or how to make it go right before it even hits the ground, right? We're still in the activation phase. After that, you have the galvanizers. Galvanizers are those people that they can just rally people around anything. So if you think of social media,
Yeah.
people just follow them because they get excited. They delegate. Let's do this. Let's get going. And that gives them energy.
Yeah.
That's the activation phase. Next phase, so there's three phases, is implementation. You have those enablers. So not in the bad sense, enablers. These people like to come along others and help them. Like, do you need help getting this task done? How can I help you? How can I teach you to do this?
Yeah.
Then tenacity people, they need clarity and they like the check boxes with a date and they'll get it done 100% of the time as long as there's clarity.
Yeah.
And so every person has two geniuses, two competencies, and two frustrations. So I'll use me as an example. My geniuses are wonder and invention. My competencies are discernment and galvanization. And my frustrations, I got balloons if you
You
guys
got
can't see.
balloons.
I got balloons going on my screen here. My frustrations are enablement and tenacity. And so if I was prideful and I saw, hey, people at the end of these three phases, they get the high fives, they get the celebrations. By the time it reaches that, um, the time where it goes to the finish line, most everyone's forgotten about the person who's created the idea, right?
Mm,
And I actually struggle with, I'll share that here. I struggle with that for a while
yeah.
because it's far from me once it actually reaches the finish line. But that was prideful of me. I don't want to check the boxes. And I want to celebrate the people who check the boxes and do the hard work that I wouldn't want to do anyway. That I don't, if I should say I'm not lazy, I still will do hard work. But if you put me
Yeah,
in a setting, I'd much rather create ideas than do a mundane check the boxes type thing. And
for
that's
sure.
exactly what you're talking about, Mario. It's you'll burn out, right? So if you're
Yeah.
working in your geniuses, you'll gain energy from that. If you're working in your competencies, you'll lose some energy and you can't do it forever. If you're working in your frustrations, crash and burn. You can't last doing that.
Yeah. It's a and people have heard that term standing in the gap, right? Like if you're just standing in the gap, you're gonna fail at some point, right? And I think of our challenges as like the gap is like just wide enough for us to stand in, right? It's like I can stand here for a moment and I can help for a moment.
Mhm.
And but not long, because I'm just gonna I will die inside and outside. And then our competencies, right, are kind of like our is that the middle too, the
Yep,
competencies.
competencies, yep,
That's like I can stay here for a little while. I don't want to be here, but I can kind of do it, but I don't want to be here. Right. And
yep,
then the other thing is not work. Like what we're geniuses at is not work. It's just because it just like flows out of us. And that's the thing is like if we can get people in the space where everything is just flowing out of them in those parts, then your organization is going to fly because
100%.
everybody's not working at that point. And that's what you don't think like, man, that guy's working really hard. Actually, to him, he's not working hard. He's just like loving it. He's loving checking those boxes. He's loving crossing things off his list. He's loving making lists. Like, that person just they threat, they live in Excel. I don't live in Excel. That's not my thing.
Right.
Right. it's like, no, I can't do it. But that's we have to think that way, because the things that we can do, not everybody can do. And the
Nope.
things that everybody else can do, we know we don't want to do. So why
Yep.
not put people in the right places so that everything just moves so smoothly that no one's actually working? Everyone's actually thriving in the place that they want to thrive at. And it takes leadership is a slightly different, you can be a leader in any one of those roles, but I think seeing into anyone else's genius is a mark of a true leader, right? It's like, hey,
Mhm.
I see those, what you were alluding to earlier. If you can mark that in people and say, hey, I see that you're really good in this, but we have you over here. Let's try this. Let's just try this. And you'll see how people will just kind of come alive in those places. I've seen it. I'm currently, a creative director at a local resorts company, and
Mm.
you see it. You see people when they're doing a job that they're just kind of like they can do, but they're not really suited for, and then you shift them to a different place where that that's just what they thrive on. They really just come alive, and the work gets better and the quality of work gets better because they were created to do something like that. And so they make it better than you thought it could be, because you don't want to do that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Whoever's listening, take the 6 working genius personality
Yeah.
test for you and then your team, and understand that being a strong leader doesn't mean it's not a power thing. It's not that I want to be the top, so I'm known to being the
No.
top. A really good leader, a lot of times people won't know you outside of that ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing because that means that you're empowering your team and you're making them the heroes of it. And you're facilitating and you're confident in what you're good at, and that you don't have to find your meaning and value in being known for these things. And there's an example that I have from the gym setting. I'll lift her up, Kaylee. So she's one of our new coaches. She's really young. I was at the front desk just popping in to see how everything's going. And she came up to me and says, "Hey, do you want me to organize all the papers in the back?" I looked at her, I was like, "Do you want to do that? What do you mean?" Like, and I think I asked her 3 follow-up questions. "So you're sure you like that?" "Yeah, I would love to do that." It's like, "Yes, of course." But I can't, like you said, I can't comprehend that.
Yeah. It's like,
If someone
who
told
would
me to
want to
do that,
do that? Like,
yeah, if someone told me to do that, I would go in the back and I would think, "How can I make this more organized?" And then not actually do anything with the papers. Just create a shell, not do anything with the
what
papers.
what other thing could I occupy my time with right now while I'm
Yeah.
thinking about organizing the papers and never actually had to do that? That's
Well,
me.
I so you're the same.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I think sure a lot of visionaries or people who have wonder invention or in that area will understand this. When I have a really big job to do, let's say I'm shoveling outside. So I'm shoveling the snow. We got a foot plus of snow last week, and it was a lot of snow. It took me about an
Jeez.
hour. What I usually do when I have to do something like that, I'll do 5 minutes and I'll stop and sit back. And is there a more efficient, better way to do this? How can I systemize that? In about 2 minutes, I'll look around. Maybe I'll find something, but most likely I didn't find anything, and I'll continue to do the work. But that's a genius trying to come
Yeah,
out when in reality I just need to do the work.
yeah,
Whereas someone like who's tenacious, they just bury their head and get it going. But if you draw this analogy out into a corporate setting, if you don't guide the tenacious people as a leader,
mm,
their heads gonna be down and they'll be buried into the wall, doing the same thing over and over and over again, burning
yep,
themselves out, not getting anywhere. If you are a visionary without the tenacious people, you're going to have hundreds of ideas, but nothing's actually going to get traction. Nothing's going to come down to earth.
yep,
That's why you need to understand both sides of this and the middle. You're bringing it from an idea to traction. Without the idea people, these tenacious hard workers will just dig the biggest hole. They'll do it fast. They'll do it very well, but it's not going anywhere.
yeah,
And without the opposite, these dreamers won't have anything come to fulfillment.
yeah. I like the whole analogy, right? But because it just gives, I think that there's someone who needs to give direction, and then there's someone who needs to actually dig the hole, right? And sometimes it could be both those people, right? But oftentimes it's not. It's like, hey, these are the things that we need to do. And then you need the next tier to go, okay, this is how we're going to do that. And the next tier is like, okay, we're the shovels. Let's make it happen. Right. Because they're the
Yep.
doers, they're the makers, they're the manufacturers, they're the ones that are going to build the tunnel. And you need those people. You need those excavators, right? That, certain people I can't fathom loving to, organize papers. It doesn't make sense to me. I will spend an hour not organizing paper to figure out how best to not have this problem ever again.
Right.
Right? It's
Yeah.
like, how can I never have this problem? And
Yeah.
the papers will stay there, but I'll think of a different way to approach, like, never having a pile of papers, or, like, okay, like, let's think of a system. Let's make a system. Like, let's do this and this and this, but the pile of paper will stay there because I don't actually want to do that. I
Right.
don't feel called to do that. But
Right.
yeah,
And that's it's important. That curiosity piece is really important too.
yeah,
Because if someone who is more of a visionary come up with ideas, it could look like they're not working at all if you're just a
for
tenacious
sure.
person.
Yeah.
Because the time and energy you need to put into, like, there's time and energy to put into an idea. But for me, I need to get away. I need to get into wilderness, to nature, I need to have time and space away from things. And that,
Mm,
that actually, sometimes that is a monotonous, hey, cutting the lawn, which would look like tenacious work, but that's my
yeah.
flow state stuff.
Yeah.
And if I don't understand that as more of the person on the taking over the finish line type area, I'm going to look at that person and say, they're lazy. They're not doing anything. Why do I have to do this? I want to do what they're doing,
Yeah.
but not realizing that you wouldn't like that. And same thing, if you're a visionary and you don't take time to understand, like this person in this area, they need really clear, measurable things to take action on. If I always come up to them and say, here's my big idea. And I understand this because my wife is the tenacious, let's get it done type of thing. So if I come at her and I say, here's my idea, usually instantly she just sees this massive 20-foot wide checkbox.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I'm going to do this. When are we going to do this? But in my mind, this is something that might not happen for 5 to 10 years, right? But I
Yes.
need to be able to communicate that.
It's weird that our
And
wives are so similar too.
yes, yeah, we should.
Just like they're
We'll
like,
we'll fly down there. We'll fly down there and
yes,
have
please,
coffee.
let's do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, that's so good because it's like when a visionary tells that to like someone who's a check box person,
mhm,
a visionary is just kind of like mulling and they're just wondering and they're just like, oh, what about this? And it's like we're imagining scenarios and it's like, hey, that'd be cool, blah, blah. And there's just this never ending list of things to do. And how are we going to do that? We got to do this before they do this. And there's a, there's another kind of like assessment that I've been toying around with. And it's really about it. It's instead of being how you do things, it's why you do things. So like,
mm,
um, for someone who is an encourager, let's say they do things because they want everybody to kind of like be uplifted and they want to draw people together. They want the masses to be excited, right? They want to rally people and they want to do things together and they love people and they love getting in, together with people. And then there's the almost a dictatorial like leader. They just want to win, like whatever it takes to win. This is what I want to do, and but
yep,
that's the that's their underlying motivation, right? And so, for someone who's like a dreamer or something like that, it's like my underlying motivation is like I'm in this state because I love the idea of creating and dreaming and thinking through things. Don't bog me down with a list of stuff that I have to do to get that done yet. I understand that has to come, but let me kind of like live in this place for a little bit so that I can kind of dream through what actually I actually want to go to and do and vision and manufacture and create. And until I have that solidified in my own brain, I'm just going to dream and I'm going to think about different things and I'm going to create different scenarios and I'm going to envision different outcomes because that's just how I'm made. And so like when sometimes that's kind of like and I don't know about you guys, but it's definitely a rough patch when I'm like trying to like just imagine and dream and she's trying to do at the same time. I'm like, you're cramping my style. Like I gotta just kind of like don't tell me all the things that I have to do to get this dream done. I just want to like kind of think about it for a little bit. But they're already like, where's the shovels? Okay, we got to start doing this. It's like, hold on. We're
right,
not there yet. And it does
right,
take a leader to like kind of know like, hey, we're not here yet, right? We're not quite there yet, but what if and what if and what if? Let's see what this looks like. And then giving that purpose and direction to the team and moving them forward is powerful.
yeah. And then giving up some leadership when it reaches a
Oh,
point where that's not your
absolutely.
gifting, right?
Absolutely.
To say this is where I think we should go. This is the idea. This is the dream. The pieces are there. Now I know I need to humble myself and say, what do you need me to do
Yeah.
on this list that I actually helped create? What do I need to do? How do I get my hands dirty? Because you're going to have it to fantasize and think that I'm just going to be able to always dream and not do these checkbox type things isn't a reality either.
Oh,
But I do
absolutely.
believe you can get to 80% of our time in a professional setting. Um, Especially if you're around a team that understands this concept too, you get
Oh,
80,
yeah.
80% plus. And that's like you said earlier, Mario, that's where everything thrives. And it almost feels weird or wrong in a way because you're thinking it should be harder than this. Like it should
Yeah.
be because we think like obviously we live in a world that is a fallen world where nothing's gonna be perfect and you're gonna struggle, we're gonna toil with the soil. But that doesn't mean you have to hate your job,
Right.
right? There's gonna be frustration still.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we like you said, we live in a fallen world. Things are not perfect and we are not perfect people, and we're we're trying to do the best we can with what we got, but I think that's the key. It's like, what's the intention? The intention is, you speak about this a lot. It's like the intention for me is excellence. Like I want I want to, whatever I do or whatever my team does or however I move forward, I want that to be done in in excellence. And it can't be done in excellence if I'm constantly putting myself in a role that I don't belong in. Right. And so
Mm.
that is something that's key for a leader to think through. It's like, okay, this is where I think we need to go. Right. And this is where I can take the team. And the most best part that I need to be a part of is rallying and organizing the team to go do the thing that we need to do, and then step back and watch the team thrive. Right? Because when you have the right people in, it's magic. It's literally magic, and it shouldn't. And it feels like it's not work. It feels like it should be harder. It feels like it should be all these things because we think in our minds like, I can't do all these jobs. Right? I cannot fathom anybody loving any of these other parts as much as I love this part. Right? But there are people made to do all of these things. And yeah, and when it works, it works phenomenally. And when it's broken, I think we have to own up to the fact that we have to change things and we have to step back.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything. I mean, if you're a leader, you have to take responsibility if things aren't going well. And if things go right, you praise everyone else. That I want to kind of talk about that, pinpoint that excellence, and more in the individual.
Hmm.
Like, we're talking more corporate right now, but individually. So for those that follow me, I talk about this whole Fit Five system: mental, physical, spiritual, relational, and professional. And in order to be exceptional
Mm,
at one thing, right? If you, in a short micro time span, like let's say an athlete, if you want to be the top of the game, you are going to have to sacrifice one area or multiple areas of your life.
absolutely.
It's very, very difficult to do so many things very, very well. And that's why you see a lot of high performers, whether it's in entrepreneurial world or athletics, where you see it. If you actually see and stuff slowly comes out, right, that they're not doing that great in their personal life in other areas.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to do everything very well. And I want to hear your thought on this, but this is kind of my idea: is you can achieve excellence in all areas of life. Um, but I'm not so much the spiritual side, because it's not about the works. It's not about, I'm going to be an excellent Christian. I'm not gonna, you can be disciplined
I
and
think
you can,
excellence looks different there. Yeah, for sure.
yes, right. It's a byproduct
Yeah,
of, but there's a way that you can be successful in business, have a really fit body, uh, barring that nothing catastrophic happens, something that you can't control,
absolutely.
have a really strong relationship with your family, with your kids. If you understand it's going to take a long time,
Mm,
and if you constantly audit and you say, okay, I've reached this point in my fitness where I know a healthy body fat percentage of me for me is like probably 10%. And I can run, I can lift pain free, I can do all these other things. If I want to get to that 7% again, if I want to be really strong, I'm going to have to take my time and energy away from one of these other five areas of life: mental, physical, spiritual, relational, professional. And I'm going to have to consciously do that or unknowingly do that. And I think a lot of people unknowingly
mm,
do this,
yep.
and they reach a point in their life where, like, I'm really fit or I have a really successful business. Why is my marriage falling apart? I don't understand. It's because you didn't do the things every
Yeah,
single day and you didn't audit. You didn't surround yourself with people who could be truthful with you.
that's good. Um, you said a couple things there that uh, I'll I'll hopefully get to, but I think one of the themes that you mentioned was discipline, right? Personal discipline. I think the
Mhm.
overarching goal would be excellence, and the last thing you said is, I think, a key point that um, what I've noticed in men as we age, as we get older, we seem to be more isolated, and we self isolate, right? So with that last piece, we lack accountability, and so there's no one invited into our lives to speak into our lives. And I've been huge on this for the past, decade, as I've really understood the power of accountability, and how accountability isn't actually, I used to think when I was younger, it's like, I don't want anybody knowing my business. I don't want anybody speaking into my life because they don't know me, and blah, 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 blah. And that's all, just pride.
Yep.
But what I was missing out on was wisdom and counsel from those who have gone before me, right? And those who know more about the road that I want to travel. And so I was not allowing people in, thinking that they were just going to try to control me. Whereas what I was actually saying no to was wisdom. And as God brought me out to Hawaii here, there was a time where, I guess it's now about 15 years ago, that God kind of like just separated me out from everything. I didn't have really didn't have work to do. I was not really, I didn't really have a lot of friends here necessarily, except for my brother and sister. And, um, and so like, I tell the story. It's like I had a Bible, I had my laptop, and I had a surfboard, and that's really kind of all I had. And God kind of like just stripped everything away as I moved out
Mm.
here. And slowly I started seeing the power of everybody that I started to admire in the spaces that I was in. The power that they wielded was a deep community and a deep accountability within that community to keep them on course. I felt like I was adrift. I felt like I had personal goals and I had personal purpose, but I didn't have anybody kind of like pulling in guardrails, say, hey, don't waste your time here, do this. Don't waste your time there, do this. Kind of like we were talking about with the geniuses. I didn't have anybody speaking into my life and saying, hey, I see this in you. You should focus more on this. And as I started inviting more accountability and community into my life, I started seeing the power of my own personal journey and growth, but also my the power of me speaking into others and their growth. And that was infectious to me. Um, so going back to the question, um, you know, I think it is possible, right? And everybody's talking about balance and all the time. I don't think there's balance. I think
No.
there's rhythm, right? There's a
Hmm.
rhythm. There's a rhythm to our lives. We have very similar, I think, focuses. I speak about spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. For the self, right? I think there's kind of three tiers that I like to kind of help guys through, and it's owning themselves, right? Self ownership and self discipline, and then it's um, owning their relationships, right? From their family first, and then outward to like maybe that first tier of close friends and mentors and accountability partners. Then there's impact, because every man wants to make impact in the world, and he does that, a lot of that through his own personal calling, and if if allowed, and if the opportunity presents itself, his calling is part of his profession, right? And so, what's the impact you're making in this world? And so, I think that we need to first take ownership of who we are and what we're good and what we're not good at. We need to know those daily disciplines that we need to take care of. Like, what's your baseline, right? What's your baseline? Are you taking care of your baseline? You talk about your body, you talk about your mind, you talk about your emotions. What's your baseline there? Like, what are the things that you have to do to stay top of your game, right? And that's just something that you just need to do. You need to do that. There's a rhythm. And if you have to borrow from places, make sure that you're borrowing from places that are extraneous to your life, right? If I want to go back into like 7% body fat, I know exactly what it's going to take. And my wife's going to hate it, because I'm going to eat, turkey breast or chicken breast every day, all day, right? I'm going to have, little to no like actual carbs. My kids and my wife love carbs, right? So I'm like, I know the discipline, my mind is willing to go there at any time, but I know what it'll actually do to my relationships because I know the type of person I need to be to get there.
Mm,
And so I think there's a missing component of self-awareness that we need to kind of take into account. Because if someone's not self-aware, they're going to think, hey, I'm just going to go back into, I'm going to get 6% body fat. And what they'll do is they'll shut everything else out except for that one thing. Their body will be the preeminent source of everything in their life. And they'll do it at the peril of everything else because they're so myopic in their goal that they're forgetting that you're actually a whole person, and you're not a whole person without all these things, all these people in your life and all these relationships and all these pieces of your life, right? So if you're not taking care of what your domain is around you, then you're going to lose everything, and you're going to have six pack. Like, what is that? What's that worth at that point? Right.
yeah.
So I think there's a self-awareness. It's like, okay, where is it that where is it that I can borrow from? Because everybody's maxed out. Like everybody's
Mhm.
maxed out. And like someone, people always ask me, it's like, oh, what do you do for your hobby? I'm like, I have kids. I don't have a hobby. Like
Right.
I,
Right.
like, well, what do you seem to work out. I was like, yeah, I work out at 5 a.m. because I need to borrow that time, like that time when everybody else is asleep. I need to take that time for myself because I know that I need to operate at my best for them. Like everything I do is
There.
for a
Yeah.
purpose, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if there was I think it was maybe about a year and a half ago now. Um, I there was a time I was like, you know what, I have to borrow from my physical kind of regimen to put food on the table. I need to just I need to take the time away from that and take the focus away from building my body or keeping my body in a certain state to really focus on putting food on the table, to really focus on like taking care of those that I need to take care of. Right. And
Yeah.
so I got fat, like because I stopped working out. All my time was dedicated to like trying to work and trying to like making sure that we're okay. And, it's like, you know, 1 month turned into 6 months. And like now I got like 25 extra pounds on me. I'm like, oh, I feel terrible now. And now it's starting to take over my mind and my emotions. And I'm like, okay, I need to start taking care of my body in some sort of way. When can I do that? Where can I do that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you start figuring out, okay, I can do it at this point. That won't take care of that. That won't take away from my ability to make money, or it won't take care, it won't take time away from my family. And then you just got to be diligent in it. Right. And you have to find the moments or the places that you can borrow from, that you're actually borrowing from yourself as opposed to borrowing from others. Does that make sense?
100%. I agree with you. And this is kind of what my whole coaching for entrepreneurs is based off of. I want to help entrepreneurs become time wealthy.
Mm,
And you I've started to reverse engineer from a year out where they want their schedule to look like based on the priorities in their life. So you're not creating your schedule based on how much money you want to make. You're creating your schedule based on this is how much time I want to spend with my family. Or for me, it's God, family, exercise, professional, and my perfect schedule. And then I fill in the gaps and I say, this is when I can work. Then I say, okay, if I want to live the life, like if I'm not needing to escape, if I'm not burnt out from my job, I don't need to go on these big vacations. I don't need to buy these fancy things. So what do I actually need to make per month to invest, to give, to enjoy life, to spend time with my family, to exercise, to eat good food, and the necessities? Find that number. You take that number, you divide it by how many hours you've allotted yourself around your priorities. Then your mission is to figure out, how do I make my time worth that? And you make your time worth that by understanding your zones of genius and where
mm,
you can add value. If you understand where you can add value, you can solve big problems for people. You don't need a lot of time to solve problems. You need the wisdom, you need the insight, you need the giftings to do that. And once
Yeah.
you become confident that someone comes to you with a problem, you say, this is what it costs. I'm going to help you do that. And that's where you get your time back. You say, you reverse engineer based on how you want to spend your time instead of saying, I want to make this amount of money, or I want to be this net worth that has no actual, like it's arbitrary,
Yeah.
right? Someone's going to say, you need to have this much money to be happy, or you need to have this to be happy. But do you really? It's not bad to have those things, but does it actually add value? And
Yeah.
then you start to, like you said, you cultivate your schedule, and you're going to have to sacrifice things, but they cannot be the sacrifice. The sacrifices cannot be of the important things in your life. So, an example, same example, during all the lockdowns during 2020 to 2023, I knowingly went from 6 workouts a week to 2. I went from 7% really great shape to about 13 to 40% body fat. I needed to, right? To save the businesses. And
Yeah.
it would be prideful of me. And for those Christians listening, we often think of idols as in the Bible,
Mm,
but anything and everything can become an idol in your life.
for sure.
If you are more willing to sacrifice important things in your life, your relationship with God, your family, at the altar of this thing, whether it's professional success or even your physical fitness, it's an idol. It has control over you. And until you can let go of that and realize, hey, I'm content with not knowing everything, but I'm going to pursue excellence with every single thing I have, time, money, and energy. And as long as I do that every single day, I can let my head rest well.
That's good. You said something that maybe we can kind of talk a bit about, but um, contentment, right? When people hear contentment, they they immediately think complacent, right?
Right.
Because they're like, oh, I don't want to be content. I want to, I have a holy discontent or whatever. Like for that, that's Christian speak, right? It's like I'm not
Right.
satisfied, and but God's called us to be content, right? And there's a power in contentment um, that I think is not talked about. And the more we can harness that power of truly being content, um, the the more wealthy we will actually understand we are. Right? You speak about
Yep.
like arbitrary numbers and arbitrary this and arbitrary that. And it's like, look, um, this means nothing. This means
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing. But what you um, but what you actually are saying is you want you want everything all at once and you want it all to be magically wonderful. Well, it's going to take work and you're going to have to borrow from here and from there, right? So what are the, we talk about big rocks too, like all the time, right? It's like, what are the big rocks? What are the major priorities in your life? Those are untouchable. But the
Yep.
thing is, when someone is so focused on acquiring something, right? Like a magical
Mm.
number that they want to make or whatever, they sacrifice everything in order for that thing. And you talked about idols, and I really think you know, there's only I would say there's only really one major idol that people can yield into, and it's really themselves, right? Because whatever it is,
Mm.
doesn't matter if it's like money and oh, people are worshiping money. No, actually, you're worshiping yourself because what you want is what you feel the
Yep.
money will buy you. So it's actually hubris. It's actually ego. So it's actually self. It's you're putting a number on your soul. Really, is what it is, and you want to you're idolizing that part of you. It's like, oh, so that you can go say, I did this, I made this, I'm worth this, blah, 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 blah. But it means nothing because your life's in there, your life outside of that is in the toilet. Right. So what did it cost you really? Right. And so you're either worshiping self or you're worshiping God. Right. I think. And, and so if you're truly calling yourself if we're talking to Christians here, it's like, if you're truly calling yourself someone who follows the examples of Christ, man, Jesus Jesus yielded everything to the Father,
Yeah.
right? He yielded everything to the Father's will, even to the peril of his own life. Why? Because he knew that the plan of the Father was the best thing, right? And so, like, as we look to Christ as our examples, like, okay, what is God actually calling you to do? Is he calling you to be successful? Okay, then that's going to come, but what's it for, right?
Right.
Is that success for you to say I'm successful, or is that success for the orphanages he wants you to build, or the people you want to influence, that he wants you to influence, so that his kingdom is built on this earth? Like there's a purpose for your success, and I think we don't talk about that as much. Kind of going back to the beginning, it's like, I don't want to apologize that I'm successful. I shouldn't have to apologize that I'm successful. God gave me a gift to do that, but it's because of this. I'm doing this with this money. I'm doing this with that money. Like, I have a purpose. This goes somewhere. I'm doing this for this, and it's to build the kingdom. And ultimately, that's what we're supposed to do, I think. I don't think that's what the Bible says. We're supposed
Yeah.
to be building the kingdom. We're actively building the kingdom with
Yeah.
souls, with people, and bringing his power down here on earth. And so the more we focus on outside things to think that it's going to bring joy or happiness in our life, then we're just really focused on operating outside of the will of the Father. And that's a whole other, that's probably a whole other podcast. But
We need to book another one. Because that goes into a whole different conversation, right?
yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
absolutely agree, because yeah, you either trust that God's God and you put your whole life to him, or you try to make yourself God
Yeah.
and think that you know better and try to seek it in things. Because everything good is from God,
Yep.
right? Everything. So before there was money, he gave us dominion over the earth. That's power. So what does money give us? It gives us power. So that's something that we're seeking, right? We want power, and the more money you have, the more power you have.
Yeah.
And that gives us a sense of security. And if we are trying to seek the only, like, we can only truly find our security, hope, peace, intimacy, all these things in God, in Christ. We can only truly find that in him. And if we try to find that in these things that are actually his creation,
Hmm.
but are not to be worshiped as gods, and it says in the Bible, don't worship my creation,
Yep.
right? If you make that the God, and you put your security, which can only truly be found in God and Christ, that's when things get distorted. It starts to wreak havoc. It starts to split you apart. And that's why it is, if you start to become, if you start to worship things, or things become an idol in your life, like whether it's my fitness,
Hmm.
whether it's my success, or it's influence, whatever it is actually a blessing then if it is not there, and you need to learn that you can't make that a God. That is a blessing, because why gain the world if you lose your soul?
That's it.
Um, and yeah, let's book another one, because I really want to dive deeper on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mario, is where can people find you? Anything that you want to plug on here that people can support you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Last year I started actually putting some more things. Like I said earlier, I'm a creator, so I my job is to create things and designs and brands, stuff like that. Last year I actually put my name in a couple things that I put out into the world, as products, and one of them is this bag company that my brother and I started. I don't know where my bag is. It's called Ember Wolves, and we make really, really high quality, high tech, uh, bags that that are like more like EDC, smaller bags but they have a lot of high functionality. And we've kind of spared no expense because we wanted to make the bags that we wanted to make. So that was something that we put out that last year. You can find some of the stuff that I do there. And then last year I also put out a 100-day Devo I focused it on men, but I mean, I have a lot of friends that are women that are reading it and finding a lot of wisdom in it. So, which has been a blessing. One thing that a friend from Alabama, she got one for her dad, who's like 70 something, and he he's been part of the Devo is like kind of like action oriented. It's like, what are you doing what are you doing right now to put to actually do and act on the things that I'm, that we're saying here. And she said that he's been going to the gym, and like he's kind of like he's like reading and getting inspired to actually like kind of work on himself right now. And I was like, that's a huge blessing. And he's like, mid 70s. I was like, that's awesome. Like only God can do that. So that's called Renewal. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, wherever books are sold and stuff like that. So that was something fun that got put out last year. And then you can if you want to just kind of check out content and stuff like that, you can find me on Instagram at the Mario Quesada, which is just my whole name.
I really appreciate your content and I appreciate conversations with you as always. If you all found a benefit or this beneficial, or you like this, give a 5-star review. It helps us,
Yeah,
helps me reach more people and share it with some friends. I want to continue to have great conversations with great people like Mario. Appreciate it, Mario.
anytime, man.